The grip closed around my wrist before I even saw his hand move. I did not scream. I did not freeze. My mind went cold and sharp, the way it always does when something threatens to break me. The classroom around me, full of alien cadets from a dozen worlds, seemed to hold its breath. My name is Lily Grant. I am human, and on that station, in that room, being human meant being small. 3 months earlier, I had arrived at the Coalition Academy on Vest Station with 9 other humans, chosen from thousands of applicants back home. We were proud. We were hopeful. We believed that intelligence and courage mattered more than height or claws or armored skin. Some of the other cadets believed otherwise. Krethik was a Dravith, a species built like walking stone. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, with plated skin the color of river rock, and shoulders wide enough to block a doorway. From the first day, he made his opinion of humans clear. To him, we were decoration, pets allowed to wear a uniform. He mocked our accents. He mocked our size. He mocked the way we needed rest after physical drills that Dravith cadets barely noticed. I had learned to let it pass over me like wind over stone because I understood something Krethik did not. Anger given a target is dangerous. Anger with nowhere to go simply fades. But that morning, in xenobiology class, his hand did not stay in the air. It landed on my wrist, and it landed hard. "Say it," he growled, his voice low enough that only those near us could hear. "Say your kind does not belong here." I felt my bones protest under the pressure. Professor Yalis had turned to the holographic display, unaware of what was happening, only a few feet behind her back. The other cadets nearby went still, unsure whether to help or simply watch. I chose neither silence nor surrender. Every day since arriving at the academy, I had trained. Not just in the required combat courses, but in the quiet hours after lights out, when the gymnasium was empty and nobody was there to laugh at a human trying to learn how to survive among giants. I had studied every species in our class. I knew where a Dravith's strength ended and its vulnerability began. I twisted my arm inward, breaking the angle of his grip, and drove my elbow upward into the soft place beneath his jaw. It was not a killing blow. It was not meant to be. It was meant to surprise, and it worked. His hand opened on reflex, releasing me. The room erupted into motion. Chairs scraped, voices rose. Krethik stumbled back, more shocked than hurt, his pride wounded far more than his body. He recovered quickly and lunged toward me again, his massive frame closing the distance in a heartbeat. But anger makes a person slow, and I had learned to move faster than fear. I stepped into his charge instead of away from it, which surprised him even more. I caught his wrist, turned my hip beneath his center of balance, and used his own weight against him. He hit the floor with a sound that echoed through the classroom, the impact strong enough to crack one of the tiles beneath him. For a moment, everything stopped. 200 cadets from a dozen different worlds stared at the scene, none of them making a sound. I did not stand over him in triumph. I did not gloat. I simply held my position, steady and calm, until Professor Yalis rushed forward and separated us. "Cadet Grant," she said, her voice sharp with alarm, "explain what happened here, immediately." "He grabbed me first," I said, my breathing steady despite the pounding of my heart. I only made sure he understood that he should not do it again. Krethik said nothing. He pushed himself up from the floor, his pride bruised far more than anything else, and walked out of the classroom without another word. He never filed a complaint. I think he understood that doing so would mean admitting, in front of the entire academy, exactly how he ended up on his back. Word of what happened spread through Vest Station, faster than any official report could travel. By evening, cadets from species I had never even spoken to were watching me in the hallways with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Some looked impressed, some looked resentful. None of them looked at me the way they had the day before. I did not enjoy the attention, but I understood its value. It was not about revenge, it was about survival, and about proving that small did not mean weak. That night, sitting alone in my quarters, I received a message from an unexpected source. It was from Elena Whitmore, one of the few other human cadets on the station, a quiet young woman from a farming colony who rarely spoke in class. "I heard what happened," her message read. "I wanted to say thank you. I did not realize until today that we were allowed to fight back." Her words struck something deep inside me. I had not thought about the other humans watching, waiting, wondering if standing up for themselves was even possible in a place built by species who saw us as lesser. The next morning, I arrived at class earlier than usual. The room was quiet, most seats still empty, and I used the silence to review my notes. When Krethik entered, he did not sit near me as he once had. Instead, he chose a seat across the room, his eyes avoiding mine entirely. I did not feel victorious. I felt something closer to relief. But the story of that morning did not end there. A senior officer named Commander Aldrich Voss called me to his office later that day. He was human as well, one of the very few in a command position at the academy, and his reputation for discipline was well known among the cadets. "I reviewed the footage from your classroom," he said, his tone unreadable as I stood before his desk. "What you did was within the rules of self-defense. However, I want to understand something. Where did you learn those movements?" "I trained on my own," I answered honestly, after hours when the gym was empty. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Most cadets your age would have frozen. Fear is common. Discipline like yours is not." He informed me that the academy had noticed a pattern of tension between human cadets and several other species, tension that had, until now, gone largely unaddressed. My actions, though unplanned, had opened a conversation that the administration could no longer ignore. Within a week, new policies were introduced. Cadets found threatening others based on species were subject to disciplinary review. It was not a perfect solution, but it was a beginning, and it was more than had existed before. Krethik and I never spoke about what happened directly, not for weeks. But one afternoon, during a mandatory team exercise, we found ourselves paired together for a survival simulation. Neither of us requested it. Neither of us could avoid it. At first, the silence between us was heavy, filled with unspoken tension, but as the simulation progressed, requiring us to navigate a collapsing structure and rely on each other's strengths, something began to shift. He was strong enough to move debris I could never lift alone. I was quick enough to spot dangers his size made him too slow to avoid. By the end of the exercise, we had completed the task faster than any other team in the class. As we walked back afterward, he finally spoke. "You surprised me," he said, his voice quieter than I had ever heard it. "I believed humans were fragile. I was wrong." "I never said Dravith were slow," I replied. "I only said you underestimated me." He let out something close to a laugh, low and rumbling, the first sound of amusement I had ever heard from him. "Perhaps we were both wrong about each other," he said. It was not an apology, not exactly, but it was something honest, and honesty was more than I had expected from him. Over the following months, the academy slowly changed. Human cadets began training more openly, no longer hiding their efforts in empty gymnasiums after dark. Other species, seeing what had unfolded, began to reconsider assumptions they had carried since childhood. I did not become famous. I did not seek glory. But I became known, quietly, as someone who would not be pushed aside simply because of size or appearance. Elena Whitmore, the quiet young woman who had once been afraid to speak in class, began joining me for evening training sessions. Slowly, other human cadets followed. What started as isolated defense became a shared strength, a reminder that we were capable of far more than anyone on that station had expected. Years later, when I looked back on that single moment in xenobiology class, I understood its true significance. It was never about defeating Krethik. It was about proving, to myself and to everyone watching, that fear does not have to control the outcome of a moment. Humanity had entered a galaxy filled with species stronger, taller, and older than us. But strength is not only measured in size. It is measured in the will to stand firm when everything around you expects you to fall. That morning taught the entire academy a lesson none of them would forget. Underestimating someone because of their size is a mistake that often comes with consequences far greater than expected. And for every human who walked those halls after me, the message was clear. We were not decoration. We were not mascots. We were something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. A quiet strength that could rise, without warning, from the smallest and most unexpected place.